you when you are talking. So please, if it's possible, put on camera if I would like to, as the co-chair, together with my co-chair fellow, Dr. Tolo from Ethiopia, welcome you all to this event on governance for advancing and maintaining the United Nations Integrated Geospatial Information Framework. So let's proceed. The agenda for today's meeting, we will have a welcome and open statements from two very experienced and well-known persons in the UN GGIM family. We will also give you a brief about the strategic plan of the high-level IGIF, but also have a panel discussion about the strategic goals that we have endorsed in the high-level group. And then we will speak and talk about what will happen in the near future, and that will be a moderate discussion and an open discussion. We would like to see a lot of engagements and involvement in the discussion. And then we will wrap up and close the meeting just before 11:45 or 7:45 Eastern American time. I would like to start to open up this meeting to welcome two persons, Ms. Rosamund Bing and Mr. Stefan Schweinfest. I will give the word first. I've met him before. I would like to introduce him. It's first of all a great honor for me to introduce these two persons, very experienced and well-known people in our UN GGIM community. Stefan has played a key role in the negotiations leading to the ECOSOC resolution to establish UN GGIM, and has actively involved himself with the global geospatial information management since, including the negotiations leading to a second ECOSOC resolution in 2016 that strengthens and broadens the mandate of this committee of experts. He has been substantive secretary of the United Nations Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management since 2011. Stefan Schweinfest was appointed Director of Statistics Division in July 2014. He is one of the fathers or creators of this UN GGIM. So please, Stefan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anders. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Good, wonderful. So it's very early in New York, but I'm very excited to be here for this event, and I see the numbers going up. We are already rapidly shooting over 70 here. So this is a particular pleasure. I see this as the ouverture or the raising of the curtain for our GGIM 11 session. The side event is critically important, or if we want to stay with a little bit of more an Olympic metaphor, it is the starting shot. And I'm of course always particularly pleased and nervous to be in the opening with Rosamund. She is such an eloquent and strong leader of our community, and I'm always heartened by the fact that Rosamund and we are sort of bookcasing the day. It's very early in New York here, and it's very late in the evening, so we have the whole world sort of between the two of us. This was supposed to be our 10-year anniversary party in New York. It's not going to be this year, but I think the IGIF substantively is the closest that we get to a big celebration, because I think for me, the Integrated Geospatial Information Framework is really a game changer. It is, in a way, looking backward, the condensation and the integration of everything we have been working on. I always was observing that some of the chapters of the framework, there is a high correlation between the topics and the chapters of the framework and the agenda of the GGIM work over the last 10 years. And it's basically that everything we have been discussing in many areas is flowing into this integrated framework. And it is time for us now also to launch what I'd sometimes call UNGGIM 2.0, and to move from the discussion of ideas, norms, recommendations, experience changing which has worked very, very well in this global community. And I must really congratulate the global community that has worked even better during the crisis and moved to implementation. And that's where IGIF is the blueprint, is the framework that we have all agreed upon. But how do we do that? And we can certainly not do it alone, not the Secretariat, not anybody around the world. And that's why I was particularly pleased that a group of very eminent and executive people have agreed to come together. We like to call our groups high-level group in the UN, but this one is really a high level group because it is strategic. They are executive members, the people that are on the group, and many of them are on this call. And let me take an opportunity to thank you, are leading national systems. So they know exactly what we are talking about, which are the components to strengthen national geospatial information. And there are several components to it. There is a technical component, there's IT component, there's human resource component, there's management, there is money, there's funding. And most importantly, there is institutional elements in the countries that need to be taken into account. And in order to, it takes real governance. It takes somebody, it takes an executive level at the national and at the global level to hold this all together. And at the national level, we have you, the leaders of the national systems. And at the global level, we have the high level group. So I'm very pleased that we will introduce all of this work today. COVID has thrown us a wrench in many dimensions, but I also always believe it is an opportunity to move forward. We will need to mobilize partnerships around the world, resources, and I'm not only talking about financial resources. Financial resources are important, but intellectual and substantive resources, technical resources are almost equally important. And it will have to be a partnership between national, regional, global, and at the global level, there are bilateral and multilateral and increasingly private donors that will help us to implement the IGIF. So I'm very happy that the group has identified communication as one of the key topics right from the beginning, because communication is important. We need to reach out. We need to understand. We need to let people understand what we are doing, how we are doing it, what are our visions. And it is difficult. We need to do it in a non-technical way, because many of our friends out there, they don't really know how to spell geodesy. And I didn't when I started in this, and I had to learn from the community, and I was taken along and I was impressed, and I'm happy to be part of this community. So one important element of governance is definitely leadership. And with a high level group, we are very blessed because we have two excellent leaders. And let me finish my opening remarks by recognizing them, thanking them. Anders Tulu, you are doing a wonderful job, not only organizing this event, but doing the work all along on a day-to-day basis with many, many emails, leading this important strategic executive work. So thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to enjoying this event.
Thank you very much, Stefan, and thank you for taking your time in this for you movement. It's also a pleasure for me to introduce and also an introduce the movement, and that's Miss Rosamund Bing. She is the Chief Executive Officer for the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources of the Government of the Kingdom of Tonga. She has held a senior executive position and acted as an in-house consultant for ministry for years. Responsible for the executive of 6 divisions: leadership and policy, land administration, survey responsible for the executive oversight of leadership and policy, corporate services, land administration, survey and services and policies, land and geographical information systems, and the National Spatial Planning Office. Sorry for mixing up in the text. Ms. Bing is currently the chairperson of Pacific Geospatial and Surveying Council, a co-chair of Extended Bureau of the United Nations, member in Asia Pacific Extended Bureau. She is also a member of UN GGM's Working Group on Land Administration Management and Expert Group on Legal and Policy Framework. Rosamund Bing, please, the virtual floor is yours.
Good evening, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. The international date line, so I'm doing the red light special, as is the case with the GGIM meeting. So as Stefan had said, we usually play tag on these occasions. But it is a pleasure to be part of this evening's event and to represent the Bureau of the United Nations Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management, welcoming our distinguished speakers, panelists, moderators, and all of the participants to this evening's side event. And my warmest congratulations as well to our co-chairs for convening this evening's event. One aspect of the IGIF that has empowered me to remain involved and very much engaged in this implementation of the governance and institutional structures within that framework. And as Stefan had referred to earlier, my passion is specifically in the strengthening of the legal and policy foundation as a critical pathway of implementing the IGIF. I see the IGIF as an enabling tool in harnessing the opportunities that geospatial information provides for social and economic development. As a member of the high-level group, I'm passionate to contribute to the mobilization of resources that's necessary to sustain the implementation and the evolution of the framework. The HLG strategic plan focuses on leadership and governance as key drivers to maintaining the momentum of the IGIF. As an executive government officer from a small island development state, we have been blessed with the opportunity to pilot the implementation of the IGIF through the development of Tonga's first country action plan on strengthening geospatial information management. With our neighboring country, Fiji, we are piloting that program here in the Pacific. We're very much guided by the pathways of the IGIF and now the HLG's strategic plan. Our intention is to complete the country action plans, share these experiences with our Pacific colleagues under the partnership that we have with the Regional Pacific Geospatial and Surveyors Council, and further abroad as necessary. So every opportunity I'm given to speak about the IGIF and its implementation to a country action plan, I'm always passionate to share our experiences. So strengthening the capacity development of our geospatial and survey professionals is something that's very important to us, because we are the professionals who are involved in addressing the multitude of challenges on the ground for small island developing states: climate change, natural disasters, food security, urbanization, and environmental degradation. So to us, the country action plan process and its outcome is a critical mechanism to secure resources to implement the activities of our plans by attracting further development and private sector partners. I wish you well in your deliberations this evening, and we look forward to the outcome of what I do anticipate will be a constructive discussion and panel discussions amongst us. Malo Abito, and looking forward to the conclusion of our event this evening. Thank you.
My appreciation for both of you taking to have awarenessing the scene for this very important topic that we are working with. You are not only in your role as Director of United Nations, Stefan, and the co-chair, and the role that you have in your regular work, Rosamund, you're true members for the work and the implementation of the IGIF. Thank you very much.
So thank you.
I think someone needs to mute their microphone because I can hear myself with the bit of delay. Thank you very much. I would like to give the to my Dr. Tulu from Ethiopia. Welcome, Dr. Tulu.
Greetings from Addis. Hello, everyone. This is Tulu from Ethiopia, co-chair of the high-level group IGF. Dear Stefan, Director of the United Nations Statistics Division, dear Ms. Rosamund Bin, co-chair United Nations Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management, dear colleagues from the United Nations Secretariat, also dear co-chair Andres from Swedish, and high-level members of all members of the high-level group, observers and panelists and participants. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank you all for participating in this side event of the 11 sessions of the Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management. This side event focuses on governance for advancing and maintaining the United Nations Integrated Geospatial Information Framework. In its decision 10/103, the United Nations Ggim at its 10th session endorsed the establishment of a dedicated high-level group of experts as a mechanism to provide strategic leadership, coordination, and oversight in order to ensure sustained planning and operationalization of the IGF. In February 2021, a high-level group with balanced geographical representation and expertise has been established to advance and maintain the implementation of the IGF. The high-level group has developed and adopted a strategic plan and currently in a process of developing a plan of action. The strategic plan aims to advance and maintain the implementation of the IGF, promote the importance and relevance of the framework for addressing national priorities and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, encourage intra-regional cooperation and inter-regional collaboration with a view to exchange and share good practice and experience. The overall implementation of the strategic plan requires mobilization of sustainable funding, expertise, and other resources. Towards this end, I highly appreciate your active engagement in this effort, and we look forward to your active participation in the work of the high-level group. I also appreciate your active contribution to this side event. Thank you once again for your interest to join this meeting, and we would like to work with you all. Thank you. And back to Andres.
Thank you, Dr. Tulu. Dear Rosamund and Stefan, thank you for taking the distinguished members of the high-level group and the audience world. You're all welcome to this important side event from our point of view. It's a pleasure for me to be of IGIF and then become the co-chair together with Dr. Tulu is an honor, especially with very competent members of the high-level group IGIF. You can see this as the first step on a long journey. And as I said, so I would like to welcome you all for today's side event and hope you all will be engaged in this meeting. With those words, I will go further on to this agenda. Just a brief background information about the high-level group and the establishment of the same. At the 10th session last year, the Committee of Experts recognized that the IGIF represents a considerable achievement and body of work which needs to be sustained and maintained, and that dedicated high-level group is required to provide oversight and guarantee that the major effort already invested in establishing the IGF will continue and ensure that the current momentum in mobilizing member states to embark on the implementation of IGF is preserved. Therefore, in making three experts endorsed the establishment of a dedicated high-level group of experts with balanced geographical representation and expertise as a mechanism to provide strategic leadership, coordination, and oversight in order to ensure and sustain success of the IGIF. The Secretariat developed a concept note to consider some of the initial modalities towards the establishment of the high-level group and convened a brainstorming session with the Bureau of UNGGIM and interested member states on December 3, 2020, inclusive of developing and refining the draft terms of reference for the proposed high-level group and the integrated geospatial information framework. So the main task for this group is to provide the strategic leadership, promotion and coordinating planning and oversight to successfully sustain the uptake and implementation of the IGIF. A short background, and what would you like to achieve during this side event today? Me, together with Dr. Tulu and the high-level group, would like to create awareness of the high-level group IGF established by the UNGGIM to provide strategic leadership. That's the key word at the moment, the strategic leadership, coordination and oversight in order to ensure to sustain the success of the IGIF. And to inform and engage delegates and observers to the 11th session on the strategic goals, activities, and progress of the high-level group IGIF. And I hope that you will be engaged in the discussion during this session. So if you have any questions or answers to be raised, so please do so we can answer them for you in the best way. So what has happened since the establishment of this group? We have had 3 meetings. The first one was held, as always nowadays, virtually February 25, when we took the terms of reference and made them into a first draft of a strategic plan. During this meeting between the February and the meeting in May, we have had preparation for this draft strategic plan and all it was finally endorsed of the high-level group July 29. So we have made a high-level group IGF strategic plan endorsed by the group that we will give to the committee expert to refine or endorse and also give guidance. From then, that will take action. We have prioritized a couple of goals that you will see later on. And then these goals are we seeking guidance for and also valuable input. And when that's done, we will produce a work plan for the future. And also GGIM. And we also plan this side event on the Morgan's 11th session of UNGGIM. As I said earlier in the opening statement, this group consists of not only the UNGGIM Bureau, it's also representatives from all the regions around the world. It consists at the moment of 21 persons, and we could be 22 at the most. And it's me, Anders Sandin from Sweden, and Dr. Tulu from Ethiopia who's co-chairing this very, very high executive group. It's been a lot of work that's been done, but there is a lot of things to do in the future as well. So I would like to give the word and the floor to Dr. Tulu, who will introduce agenda item 2.
Thank you, Andres. The high-level group has been working for the last few months on the strategic plan and also development of plan of action. We actually set 6 strategic goals, and we prioritized 3 strategic goals out of 6. So we the 3 strategic goals are: the one is the improved communication, the second one is strengthening capacity development, and the third one is mobilizing sustainable funding. And the other strategic goals will be also considered in the upcoming, I think, in the next implementation time. So we mainly focus on these 6 strategic goals, and we prioritize 3 of them. And I will go in detail on this strategic goal is adopted by the high-level group on the 3rd meeting held on the 29th of July. The next slide, please. I think there is another slide. So the strategic goal 1 is improving communication. Even though it is evident that global geospatial data set plays a vital role for decision making and policy setting, there is a broad global consensus on the lack of awareness and understanding at different executive level, governance, and also at public at large regarding the societal values and the importance of the geospatial product and services to attain national priorities in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The IGIF has been developed in recognizing these gaps, and this specific strategic goal, which improving communication, is formulated by the high-level group to create awareness on the importance and relevance of the IGIF for policy and decision makers, as well as for other stakeholders outside of the geospatial community. Toward this strategic goal, the main focus area or focus action includes develop and implement a communication strategy that serves as a guide for countries to develop effective communication tools. Also, the other action is to initiate the IGIF forums at a global and regional levels for creating awareness and also to realize benefit from the implementation of the IGIF. And the second most priority area, prioritized goal is strengthening capacity development. Globally, the maturity level of the national geospatial information management arrangement is at different stage. In most developed regions, there is good geospatial information management arrangements and capabilities, while there are significant limitations in developing countries, both in institutional arrangement and technical capabilities and capacities related to especially geospatial information management arrangements. National capacities and capabilities towards effective geospatial information management arrangements can be developed through implementing the IGIF. In this regard, we formulated this strategic goal to serve as to strengthen capacity development in all aspects of geospatial information management arrangements. The main focus actions include serve as executive champions of the high level of the IGIF, promoting the implementation and the use of the IGIF. So the high level group, from all regions will actually serve as an executive champions toward the implementation of the IGIF. And also through this capacity development goal, we we foster assistance to developing countries to implement the IGIF, particularly those who have little or no geospatial capacity. Also, it focuses on encouraging exchange and sharing of good practices, successful strategies, and experience in effective implementation of the IGIF. So this goal will leverage such kind of actions. And the third strategic priority goal is to mobilize sustainable funding. The ambition of the high-level group IGIF is to ensure sustained implementation of the IGIF at the country level through its strategic plan developed in an alignment to its mandate. the planning and operationalization of the high-level group strategic goals, especially Goal 1, 3, Goal 1, 3, 4, and also the remaining goals 2, 5, and 6 requires sustainable funding and mobilization of available resources. These goals aims to mobilize sustainable funding and other resources to support the planning and operationalization of the IGF at the country level. Members of the high-level group are expected to mobilize resources to advance and maintain the IGF. And some of the focus actions include identify sources and mobilize funding to foster and support implementation of IGF. Use also available resources at hand from all the members of the high-level group to implement the IGF. So at least the high-level member group should take some level of responsibility in terms of taking a champion's leadership toward the implementation of IGF, as well as towards mobilizing resources for the implementation of some key documents and also key strategic actions. Develop and provide mechanisms to identify funding sources and requirements to support developing countries, integrated geospatial information management action plan. Mobilize resources for implementation activities and maintain the momentum and evolving refinement of the IGF with member states and other relevant stakeholders. These are the three prioritized goals, and also we are currently in a process to establish some teams, sub-teams and working group, which will be discussed on the later stage. And the remaining goals also, there are some remaining goals. 3 remaining goals will be implemented in the following this the prioritized goals. And I think the following this, we need to mobilize all the resources and make all the possible coordination in order to effectively implement these 3 prioritized goals. And we will look forward how we can also engage we can also start looking forward to implementing the remaining strategic goals. Thank you very much, Andres. I will revert back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thank you very much, Dr. And I'm so sorry for my problems with the slides and disturbance during your presentations. But I hope you heard the 3 prioritized goals, and this presentation will, of course, be available after this session. As you've seen, a lot of things has been done, and we have had a tremendous work in the high-level group, and we have prioritized these goals. And what we would like to do now is have a panel discussion on the strategic goals of the high-level group IGIF. This will be led by Mr. Tim Trainer, and he's an incredibly experienced moderator for today's panel discussion, who really knows UNGGIM from the beginning until today. Mr. Tim Trainer is president of the International Cartography Association. He serves as the member of the U.S. National Geospatial Advisory Committee, and he previously served as representative to the FGDC Executive and Steering Committee for the U.S. Department of Commerce and the U.S. Census Bureau as a senior agency official for geospatial information. He directed geographic and cartographic activities to support the Census Bureau's geospatial data collection, tabulation, and dissemination programs for the United States. As head of U.S. delegation and the co-chair to UNGGIM, he has also served as an expert to the UN, led to creation of the UNGGIM in 2011. So we have both of the fathers and creators of the UNGGIM with us today. So please, Mr. Tim Trainer, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Anders, and thank you, Dr. Tulu, for your leadership. Dear friends and colleagues, we have heard from Anders and Dr. Tulu on not only the importance of the IGIF, but that governance is now applied to safeguard its role for member states through the recent establishment of the high-level group. The IGIF needs champions, and the recently formed high-level group of the IGIF is comprised of senior executives, as Stefan noted earlier, and these senior executives are in government who serve as the champions of the IGIF. They are applying their experiences and thinking strategically for the success of this framework. They are now assuming the high-level governance needed to advance and maintain the IGIF, which is the theme of this session. So today we have 4 executives from the high-level group to share with us some of their views about the IGIF, what they hope to achieve as a member of the high-level group. And then looking at the goals that we just saw, I've asked each panel member to comment on one goal that they have a special interest in and why it is especially important to them. Before we hear from our panelists, for those participating in this side event, and we're now up over 100, we encourage you to post questions that you may have to the chat, and we will do our best to monitor and address your points. We will use what time is left in this session for your questions. And so our first panelist today is Mr. Jamie Clark from the United Kingdom. Jamie is the Deputy Director at the United Kingdom Geospatial Commission. He recently led a team to secure agreement for a 10-year, €1 billion, sorry, I'm used to dollars, billion euros, government investment to upgrade the United Kingdom's geospatial capability. Jamie is new to the working directly with the UNGGIM, but he's been working in the United Kingdom delegation for a long time, as well as with spatial data infrastructure for many years. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jamie to share with us as an executive, what do you plan to bring to the high-level group to advance and maintain the IGIF? Jamie, thank you.
Thanks very much, Tim. I mean, obviously, in answer to your question, the first thing I'd like to say is my sparkling personality and winning smile is what I'd like to bring, but I'll leave you to judge whether that's true or not. I think if we were in a room together at the moment, I think I'd start by asking people to raise their hands and ask them, at the last time you had a family gathering, whether you discussed things like the weather, which we obviously do a lot in the UK, or your journey to work, or the building of new property or infrastructure, or the beautiful place that you've been on vacation recently. I suspect most of you would have kept your hands in the air for that. If we did the same thing, except this time asked about how many of you have ever discussed data formats with your family, family gathering or family meal, or the specifics of data licensing, I suspect there would only be a few hands that probably stayed up. If we then ask those that had remained with their hands up in the air, how many of your family and friends were actually interested in the discussion about those things, I'm pretty certain the number of people with their hands still in the air would be even fewer, if any at all. And I think this leads us to the key point. As a global geospatial community, we love what we do. We enjoy the complexity of it, the technical challenge that it offers, and the incredible insights and opportunities that you can derive from it. There is a very special feeling when a piece of analysis or a piece of work that you've been doing uncovers something that would never have otherwise been seen as a result. However, not everybody shares the joy that we do necessarily from this, and many decision makers, politicians and citizens simply do not care about geospatial data. They are, however, all incredibly interested in the better outcomes that geospatial data enables and how those are delivered. For example, no government minister I have ever met has time to talk about the capture resolution, the relative accuracy and the provenance of highways data, for example. They are, however, very interested in how we can enable ambulances to reach an emergency or a casualty quicker. So the IGIF for me offers huge opportunities for all of us as member states, both within our own countries, but also working together to tackle global issues. And all of us here today recognise those opportunities, and that's probably why we're here. It is the demonstration and communication of these better outcomes that is key for better decision making. Communication of these better outcomes that is key to getting decision makers and others to support and invest in the IGIF going forwards. Our challenge, therefore, is relatively a simple one. How do we improve communication and understanding of the importance and the value of the IGIF to those beyond the geospatial community? Key part of that is around strengthening cooperation with stakeholders towards a nationally integrated geospatial information management. Pretty easy, right? We could probably have this done by tomorrow lunchtime if we put our minds to it. Just in case it does prove harder, though, I think it is a little bit more challenging than that. We might have to wait a bit longer. In Europe, we have a lot of experience around trying to do this, and we've learned a lot from that. So, for example, we have the INSPIRE directive, which guides European countries on how to implement spatial data infrastructures and to enable interoperability of data to support multi-country responses in relation to the environment. In the UK, we addressed this, and this is a technical opportunity, and presented the benefits to stakeholders and decision makers through the lens of increased technical capability. What we were not particularly effective at least initially, was making the case for how the implementation of INSPIRE would deliver better outcomes at a local, regional, and national and international levels. Whilst we've been able to make good progress on the implementation of INSPIRE, I'm sure many of my European colleagues would agree it has taken much longer than many of us would have hoped. We have learnt a lot through that experience and the communication of INSPIRE and the INSPIRE directive, and we really believe we can help bring those learnings to help with reach a better point with the IGIF very quickly. However, with the IGIF, we are also starting from a real position of strength. Many member states have already implemented elements of the IGIF, meaning that there are an ever-increasing number of excellent examples and case studies of what IGIF can enable for member states. For example, the World Bank Open Learning Campus IGIF course earlier this year included case studies from the Seychelles, Norway, South Korea, Mexico, Serbia, and Mongolia. We're also incredibly fortunate to have a number of member states who are in the process of implementing IGIF in full as we speak, and from whom we'll all be able to understand the benefits and outcomes that they are realizing in real time. This in turn will help decision makers in other member states to see both the immediate and long-term benefits that are generated through implementation of IGIF. Equally, Geospatial does not operate in a vacuum, doesn't operate in isolation. It's therefore going to be critical that we work with our colleagues and embedding both the IGIF, but also the global statistical geospatial frameworks, and also the framework for effective land administration. A coordinated approach will help to ensure that geospatial data and the IGIF is understood as being a key enabler for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda. This will be particularly important during this UN decade of action on Sustainable Development Goals, including for supporting action on climate change, mitigation, adaptation and resilience, which has, as shown in yesterday's IPC sixth assessment report, is ever more critical. As Dr. Tulu mentioned earlier, in terms of the IGIF, the high-level group's strategic plan, we have outlined a series of steps and activities that we are looking to take. So that would be to develop a communication strategy, create awareness of the importance of the IGIF for policy and decision makers, as well as for other key stakeholders, normally outside of the geospatial community. We'll look to identify an inclusive communication channels for the IGIF. This is key so that we do not leave anyone behind. Initiate IGIF forums at the global and regional levels for creating awareness and realising the benefits and implementation of the IGIF and other relevant frameworks, such as the GSGF and the FELA. We'll convene consultative meetings on the implementation and operatisation of the IGIF, and finally, share and communicate IGIF in relevant forums as a key umbrella of many of the activities under the purview of the UN GGIM. By way of to summarise, from my perspective, and what I would like to bring to this, is that IGIF is an incredible framework. We should all be very grateful to those that have been involved in its creation and development so far. It offers both member states and the global community huge opportunities to deliver better outcomes for our citizens. The challenge we have now is to be able to communicate all of the wonderful nuance and detail and technicality that the IGIF enables in such a way as to interest decision makers. And for me, there is a perfectly a fantastic test environment we have for how effective we'll be at communicating this. And that's the next time we have a family gathering, is anyone interested in what I do for a job? So that's what I would like to bring. Thank you, Tim.
Well, thank you, Jamie. You've really set us up now for the rest of the panel, the rest of the session, and then going forward. So thanks for those thoughts and challenges before us. The next panelist that we will hear from is Ms. Mimi Marava Ashoka from South Africa. And Mimi works in the South African Department of Agriculture, Land Reform, and Rural Development as the Director for National Spatial Information Framework. And her role is to implement the South African spatial data infrastructure, no small feat. Mimi also serves on the working group on fundamental data and standards on the UN GGIM Africa. Quote, implementing the South African spatial data infrastructure is her passion. Institutionalizing the IGIF in South Africa is her goal, unquote. I really like that. Well, off to you now, Mimi, please.
Thank you, Tim, and greetings from South Africa. I will start my talk by reflecting on what the former chairperson of the UNGGIM Africa once said, and that is Mr. Sultan Mohammed. He said, African countries are lagging behind in SDI implementation and therefore widening the geospatial data digital divide. And the main reason for the lag is believed to be on the approach followed, which focus mainly on a bottom-up approach with geospatial information, organization, and professionals talking to themselves, and not involving the higher-level decision-making political organs of government. And this has led to lack of leadership support and consequently lack of financial support to implement NSDIs. Now we have the IGIF, an enhanced framework that provides for the development of country action plans that must reflect the challenges and the needs at the country level, including the need for capacity development. Now, as a member of the high-level group, my contribution in advancing the implementation of the IGIF, and in particular strengthening capacity development, is mainly driven by the desire that no country should be left behind. And this is my proposal. In the short term, we need to identify more champions. We need to identify mentors, ambassadors, and change agents. And if I was talking to my teenage kids, they will say, Mommy, we need influencers as ground forces that will assist socialize the IGIF framework. If you are listening to Jamie Clark, he said we must start discussing IGIF at the family dinner tables. That's what we need to do. And of course, linked to the communication strategy and the need to establish communities of practice, we need to aggressively host capacity building workshops. We need to develop e-learning materials. We need to provide toolkits to assist developing countries to formulate their country action plans. It is only through formulated country action plans that the high-level group on IGIF will be able to comprehend and have a clear picture on the state of geospatial information management at the country level. Now, in the medium term, we need to develop what can be termed an IGIF competency assessment framework. Having that kind of a framework in place and assessments done will inform the type of intervention programs to be implemented and will assist to deliver a more customized training that is focused at addressing a specific need. A specific need can be issues on governance, issues on data and technology and so forth. Now, the intervention programs, including the technical support and the capacity development to be delivered, can be done in collaboration with the UNGGI and private sector network. The development of the IGIF competency framework can be done in collaboration with the UNGGI and academic network, together with institutions of higher learning, preferably at a local level, because We want to socialize and build capacity locally. And again, through the Center of Excellence, such as the United Nations Global Geospatial Knowledge and Innovation Center in Beijing, China, we need to develop a geospatial knowledge creation framework to facilitate the exchange and sharing of good practices, experiences, and successful strategies. We need to document the good stories in implementing NSDR, and we can all learn from them. Now, as a long-term plan, and with the purpose to ensure sustainability of IGIF, when we have country action plans, and of course, anchored into national development priorities, because that is important. When we have an IGIF competency assessment framework, when we have the geospatial knowledge creation framework, we are in a better position to lobby for the inclusion of geospatial capacity needs in the long-term resource plan of a country, because its link is to delivery. It links to delivery of the national development priorities and ultimately the SDGs. And to achieve all this, we need to pull all strategic levers already provided by the IGIF, which is communication. We need to socialize IGIF. Governance, we need to garner support from the political leadership. Financial, we need to plan how we will mobilize resources for the implementation of IGIF. And last but not least, partnership. How do we work with one another to deliver on this work? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mimi. That was very exciting for me to hear your not only your recognition of what's happening within the IGIF, but the challenge for what we need to be focusing on and what we need to do next. So thank you for those comments, and we'll be coming back to you, obviously. The next panelist that we have is Ms. Simone Lloyd from Jamaica. And Simone is a certified geospatial professional, and so that says something in itself. And she serves as the senior GIS manager within the National Spatial Data Management branch of the Jamaica's Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment, and Climate Change. And in that role, she serves also as Jamaica's head of delegation to the UN GGIM Committee of Experts. She's active on the Working Group on Geospatial Information and Services for Disasters. And as you now know, Simone serves as the UN GGIM Americas representative on the high-level group of the IGIF. She's also Jamaica's focal point for the UN GGIM Americas, serving on the CARIGEO project, and that's an important one for that part of the world. So with that, I now turn it over to you, Simone, to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. Confirming whether you can hear me?
We can hear you, thanks.
All right, wonderful, thank you. Hello, everyone. Hailing you from Jamaica. So the UNGGIM Americas Regional Committee and Jamaica as one of its member states within the Caribbean recognizes the importance of the IGIF in strengthening national geospatial information management arrangements within member states towards really bridging the digital divide and supporting its implementation, and in particular, the whole achievement of different development agendas, such as the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Now, a key strategy in moving forward will be the identification of sustainable funding, especially for small island developing states and other developing countries such as Jamaica and others within the Caribbean and otherwise, whose small economies are fragile and have been compounded by the severe impacts of the catastrophic ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Lack of funding, and more importantly, sustainable funding, has been a major limitation preventing the IGF's implementation in many countries. Member states within the Americas are at different stages of their IGF implementation, development and implementation process, as with other regions of the world. So engaging member states with a view to understanding where they're at in terms of their stage, the challenges that they're experiencing, how it is that this is very important. It's a very important process in determining and therefore being able to guide approaches that will facilitate the initial start and then the subsequent building of momentum towards facilitating progress. Our colleague Jamie would have spoken already to the need for improving communication. Virtual country exchanges to learn from technical and financial experiences of each other in IGF implementation is therefore highly recommended as a strategic communication approach that can be targeted at the global, regional, and national levels. And I'm so happy to hear Rosamond speak about that and how much it is that Tonga has to share with respect to what they have, their progress with regards to the IGF. So these exchanges would explicitly demonstrate the potential societal value and impact of the IGIF, in addition to strategies that have been and could be further applied in member states. In moving forward, identifying and accessing sustainable funding for member states, communication and awareness raising initiatives must be pursued to facilitate needed exchange of knowledge, which would then support informed decision making and necessary action. Now, demonstrating the relevance, the importance, and the usefulness of the IGIF to national priorities and circumstances is essential, especially within the context of limited and growing competing demands for financial resources. This is integral to gaining the support of executives and the political leadership towards securing funding that supports IGIF implementation. This is of course a particular interest to me within the high-level group. The mobilization of sustainable funding has been identified as one of the 3 priority areas, as would have been spoken to by Dr. Tulu. And so with that, as reinforcement, the high-level group will be looking at identifying sources and the whole mobilization of funding, in addition to developing and providing the mechanisms to identify funding sources and really the requirements of developing countries with respect to us being able to support the development of our action plans. In addition to the implementation of activities and maintaining the momentum and evolving refinement of the IGIF within member states and also other relevant stakeholders. Over the past 30 years, Jamaica has made significant strides in our geospatial information development and management. We look forward to contributing to and benefiting from proposed virtual country exchanges and other mechanisms as we strive for greater efficiency and as we envision commencing the preparation of our country-level action plan towards the IGIF. Jamaica is therefore very pleased to be one of the Americas representatives on the high-level group on the IGIF towards supporting strategies and mechanisms that can mobilize appropriate resources and funding to support the planning and operationalization of the IGIF at the country level. I thank you.
Well, thank you, Simone, for those guiding words. And I think you hit on some key points that we're obviously seeing some reaction to in the chat. So that's also good. And I would encourage you to take a look at some of those comments as we will begin shortly our engagement on that topic. So our final panelist for this particular session is Deirdre Bishop from the United States of America. Deirdre serves as the chief of the Geography Division at the United States Census Bureau. Most recently, she directed all geographic operations associated with the 2020 decennial census, culminating in the release of the updated administrative and statistical boundaries for the United States. I've added to Deirdre's note that she also, in order to be able to do that, she also managed all the addresses for the United States as well as the road network. So not a minor set of responsibilities. Deirdre serves as the United States Head of Delegation for the UNGGIM and she also serves as president of the United States National Section of the Pan American Institute on Geography and History. So with that, I would like to turn it over now to Deirdre, please.
Thank you, Tim, and greetings everyone from the United States. Thank you for the invitation to be part of this important panel and to share some thoughts on behalf of the UN GGIM Americas Regional Committee and also on behalf of the United States. Today, we heard from our esteemed colleagues about the development of the high-level group IGIF strategic plan and its 6 goals. The high-level group has decided that it will be best to focus our efforts now on 3 of those goals. Improve communication, as we heard from Jamie, strengthen capacity development, as we heard from Mimi, and mobilize sustainable funding, as we heard from Simone. Jamie, Mimi, and Simone provided wonderful examples and clearly explained how they, as executives within their countries and as leaders within their regional committees, intend to support these goals. And in addition to supporting the goals, they explained how they intend to contribute to the goals. In listening to my colleagues today, and in reviewing the comments on the sidebar chat, I would now like to suggest that for us to be fully successful, we must fully implement the strategic plan, as well as the IGIF as a whole. And to do this, we must finalize Part 2 of the IGIF, the implementation guide. You will recall that Part 1 of the IGIF was the overarching strategic framework. It is a strategic policy guide used to educate decision makers about the value of geospatial information and the importance of its management. The overarching strategic framework explains the why and includes the 9 strategic pathways that we are all so familiar with seeing illustrated as the puzzle pieces. Part 2 of the IGIF is the implementation guide. This is a reference resource that describes the what, the actions that can be taken to strengthen geospatial information and its management. The implementation guide provides the guidance through the 9 strategic pathways, and this guidance is general enough to be applicable to all of our countries. The implementation guide may be used as a primer or a partner document in the development of the country-level action plans. To date, a lot of time and energy has been invested in the implementation guide. 15 IGIF events have been conducted, which included 730 participants from 133 countries. Many of you participated in those events, reviewed a draft of the implementation guide, and helped contribute over 1,300 unique comments for review and consideration. While the implementation guide is currently available on the IGIF website and is being used by many countries, it needs to be updated with those valuable contributions that were provided during the global consultations following the 10th session of UN GGIM. Much effort has been devoted to assessing and classifying those contributions. Some of the comments also helped the high-level group formulate its strategic plan. It's now time for us to use that feedback to refine and finalize the implementation guide, as well as to create a digital publication that can be shared more broadly. Refinements to Part 2, the implementation guide, will result in necessary changes to Part 1, the overarching strategic framework, and that also must be prioritized. As a member of the high-level group, I am committed to contributing to this important effort and to encouraging others to do the same. I know that the IGIF Implementation Guide, Part 2, is a tool that will make a significant difference in helping the member countries of UN GGIM become stronger in their management of geospatial information. This, in turn, will help our decision makers, our collective leaders, to plan and respond to the challenges faced by society today. In closing, I'd like to share, and while this will be a challenge, that our goal within the high-level group is to finalize Part 2, the implementation guide, by the end of this calendar year, 2021. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning. Back to you, Tim.
Well, thank you, Deirdre. And I think you've helped outline some additional challenges and tasks before us or before the high-level group as they embark on their continued journey. First, let me just thank all of the panelists for their statements and their perspectives. As I was listening to you, it became clear to me that the senior role of individuals who are knowledgeable in what we do is now advancing within governments. That there's more opportunity for these senior leaders to actually be in positions that make a difference. And I think one of the things that the IGIF will help in that regard for all countries is to show the level of importance of the IGIF to all things within a country. So from that perspective, it's clear that the messaging that we heard today from our panel is quite extraordinary. And so thank you for that. In looking at the chat, I thought maybe what I would first do is to reach out to the panel and ask for your comments, and we would just do this as you want to dive into the conversation. But one thing that we are seeing is that for those of us who have been in this space of the geospatial arena for quite a long time, we've been working in this national spatial data infrastructure environment, which principally had been focused on managing data, getting data into a form that could be usable by lots of people for different purposes. But as time has gone on, one of the drivers for the IGIF was this notion of more and more data types becoming available, and people having a difficult time getting an answer to simple questions that had a geospatial component to it. And that really wasn't thought of in the domain of geospatial. But now with the IGIF, and we talk about this to a great extent in the integrated nature of the data, that's no longer the case. And so to the panel, as we begin to transition from what we've been working on in a national spatial data infrastructure environment, where it is in many places largely siloed and focused on particular themes and assets and so forth, but we're now trying to bring these things together. How do you see the IGIF taking us to that next step? In developing countries, we know that there have been some challenges where they made efforts to pursue the NSDI, but that was met with not the greatest success in some cases. And some of our members of the panel know that firsthand. So maybe we could just have some comments on that. And I'll just go down the list first, just to see an initial reaction from folks. So Jamie, do you have thoughts on that? Please, thanks.
Yeah, so an initial sort of view in this one is that an NSDI for me is always about the foundation. In getting your foundations right, allow you to build into those higher value use cases. And I think the separation that we've struggled with over the last sort of 20 odd years, but have started to make progress in, is where by building that really strong foundation and understanding that foundation, it allows decision makers to see how they get a direct line of sight to a particular high value use case that they are interested in. And it is how we pitch and how we explain that foundation and what it enables, I think, is the criticality in how we progress the IGIF conversations into this is the outcome, the valuable outcomes that it delivers, rather than focusing on it in and of itself as a layer or as an NSDI.
Thanks for that, Jamie. And Mimi, do you have a view on this, please?
Thank you, Tim. I think from my own observation is that the NSDI, it's a very good base. And for countries with functional SDIs in Africa, they are a step closer to implementing the IGIF. And so the SDI provide a stepping stone. So because we would have then dealt with the technical issues of data, standards, and maybe training, to some extent policy that's provided through the SDI. So we'll be left with a few elements that we'll need to focus on, which is more on issues of governance, financials, and the partnerships, including communication. So those countries that have implemented NSDI, they are very closer to achieving the IGIF goal. But for countries that have not started with NSDI, maybe the approach is to say, go directly into IGIF, because then it provides a holistic framework and you start on the right footing. You don't have to go through the experiences that we have followed with implementing NSDI in terms of political support and financial challenges that we had. So for countries without NSDI, it's good to jump into the IGIF. That's my own, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mimi. And to you, Simone, do you have a perspective on this? We're hearing some very good points raised by all of the panelists. Thanks. Simone, I think you're muted for, yeah.
Sorry.
That's
Yes,
okay.
I was saying that I'm in full support of what Ggim, but in particular, what Mimi would have spoken to. If a country has started its progress with respect to its NSDI, and depending on where it is at, it is more so on a better footing with regards to IGF implementation than if they're starting from scratch. Within the case of Jamaica, we have made significant strides where that is concerned. And so as we examine launching to looking at how best to create our country action plan and to implement the IGIF, we would have had a good base to launch from with respect to doing that. So I'm in full support of what Mimi would have spoken to in terms of countries with an NSDI or who are advanced in achieving that, being in a better footing with respect to the IGIF. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. And now to you, Deirdre, if you have some thoughts on the question posed. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. I too agree with my colleagues and what they've shared this morning. I strongly believe that geography creates the foundation that allows everything else to happen in terms of communicating information and making good decisions. I think that the UN GGIM Committee of Experts has done a wonderful job in creating tools that both developing countries and developed countries may use in validating their foundation or creating their foundation. So part one, the overarching strategic framework, provides the why. Why is this important? Part two, the implementation guide, provides the how. Concrete actions about how to implement a strong integrated geospatial information framework. I think that whether you're a developing country or a developed country in terms of geospatial information management, you have to continue to be flexible as you use these tools. Go back to these tools and reflect on your progress, and then be open to collaborating with your colleagues both inside your country and around the world, because the benefit from that collaboration is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre. And I am cognizant of the time. So as a last question to all the panelists, just for a quick summary of your perspective from what we have been sharing today, I'd just like to hear a parting thought from you. And before we do that, I just wanted to acknowledge that there are quite a few people on listening to this side event. And I do know that, as Rosamund mentioned in her opening remarks, that Tonga and 5 other countries are benefiting from actually beginning that implementation process as part of part 3 for the IGIF. And all of those countries are listening in at the moment. So welcome to my friends, and I'm glad you're with us today. And I think the sharing of those experiences, both from developed worlds and developing worlds, I think all of those things will help us as we go forward. So As a parting comment, can I come back to you, Jamie, for just an idea or a thought on your mind? Thanks.
Yeah, so I think thank you for everything and all the commentaries today. I think it's been fantastic, interesting. I think we're at a really exciting point. I think regardless of where we are, we're all on a journey, and I think the opportunities to learn and progress from one another is huge, and really excited about the next stage that we can take IGIF forwards.
Thanks, Jamie. And now on to you, Mimi, please.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you for this opportunity. Quite an interesting discussion. And I think my parting shot is that the work done around the development and the implementation of IGIF is great. And I think what we just need to do is just to keep the momentum, and we appreciate the work done by the people behind the scene. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mimi. And Simone, please.
Thank you so much, Tim. So the three priority areas or goals, and we're happy to see that in the chat persons are agreeing with the fact that the high level group would have chosen the whole area of communication, different from capacity building, and the whole move with respect to sustainable funding as being those three areas of which we really need to focus on in terms of being able to get member states sensitized in terms of the IGIF, its importance, its relevance, its applicability, different from engaging with respect to understanding their individual needs, their challenges, and how it is that we can collectively work on strategizing on how it is that we can assist with jumpstarting each member state with respect to actually starting, because importance is starting. And I think based on where we're at, that most, if not all member states have some amount of background and experience with respect to some launching pad from which they can start. So I don't think it's a case where we're all starting from ground zero, which is a good thing. The virtual knowledge exchanges of which I spoke to is a key area, I think, of which we definitely need to focus on, because there is really a wealth of experience and knowledge. Jamie would have spoken to that, Rosamond would have spoken to that, and our other colleagues in terms of what has been achieved, what is in progress, and so with that, what it is that we can learn from each other. And in learning from each other, how it is that we can help each other to move forward. And that is what is important. That is what is important towards ensuring that we're able to really advance the IGIF and to really benefit from its implementation within the member states with respect to our whole management of our geospatial information as we move forward to achieving various agendas, such as, of course, the 17 goals of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute and for being a part of this side event.
Well, thank you, Simone.
Over to you, Tim.
And as you just described, sometimes what we need to do doesn't have to be complicated. It can be a simple message moving forward, but one that's consistent and we stay on top of it. Lastly, to you, Deirdre, thoughts from today.
Thank you, Tim. My colleagues have spoken so eloquently, it's hard to provide unique comments, but I will follow on what Simone said. And my closing thought is that we're stronger together. We have a strong community of geospatial experts here. We have a good benchmark to start with. Let's work together to support the three goals we've outlined today. Let's finish part 2, the implementation guide, and let's move to implementation of the country level action plans. The high level group of the IGIF is committed to being here, to helping promote the goals, the strategic plans, and the finalization of part 2. And so reach out whenever you need to. Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre. And to close this session, I would just say thanks to all of our panelists. It was a wonderful engagement and good guidance coming from some very senior people in your organizations. It is clear that the IGIF needed governance, and the high-level group gives it that governance. And so to all of the folks on the line today that are listening to this panel discussion, I would just encourage you that you are all IGIF champions, and I encourage you to assume your responsibilities and go forward. And with that, I'm going to turn this back over to our co-chairs, Anders and Dr. Tulu. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. And I give you an applause for your initiative of the IGF champion. It's something that we all should wear. Tim, you made a tremendous work with this panel discussion, and thank you all panelists: Simon Lloyd from Jamaica, Mariola Mimichoki from South Africa, Julie Bishop from the United States, and Jamie Clark from the United Kingdom, who gives these prioritized goals alive. And they are not just prioritized words, there is actually a meaning with them, and you are truly committed, and you can show the progress that we are doing, and also what kind of impact those goals have on your organization and countries. And your summary of the status of the IGIF, Deirdre, was tremendous to listen to, and I hope that was addressed to all around this session, that we reach out our hand and seek for assistance and help, so we can finalize a couple of the things that still is open. So thank you very much, Tim. Thank you, panelists, for making this a great content of the work that we are doing. Dr. Tulu, would you like to address something to the panelists and Tim?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andres, for the opportunity. Thank you very much, Tim and the panelists. We had a very interesting discussion. And I think all the strategic goals, and also what sorts of strategic leadership and contribution can the high-level group contribute to this implementation of strategy for the high-level group has been well discussed. And also, I'm very glad that all the high-level group, the panelists in this discussion, is committed towards supporting this initiative, and also in terms of mobilizing resources and contributing to the implementation of the strategy as a part of also by leading some of the strategic goals also. So I'm very much pleased that we had a very interesting discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Tulu.
Thank you, Dr. Tulu.
We move on to the agenda item 4. And that's about the plan of work for the high-level group of IGIF. I hear myself. So there is a lot of activity that has been done, and that's something also that this panel discussion moderated by Tim. And what we have done is to prioritize. That's been one of the things that we felt very important. We think that all the goals are equally important, but we need to narrow the focus and committed to time these goals. So what we will do in the next is endorse guidance from the Committee of Experts during the UNGGM 11, where we will get support or hopefully endorsement of the work that we are doing and take it into the next step. And we will establish the plan of work with the 3 subgroups that is UNGGM 11. And one thing Deirdre Caraway talked about was the implementation guide, to refine and finalize the IGIF implementation guide. And that's something we need to have currently. And as Deirdre said, there is a lot of work still to be done to finalize the implementation guide. And this will be an enormous time, but we have a lot of information to work into that implementation guide, and that's the foundation for the work for the IGIF and for the leadership of high-level group of IGIF to fulfill and finalize. So there's something where we reach out and seek for assistance and support and funding, not of money, but of persons, groups that we will establish to fill these goals with activities. So we have in progress. And I'm so glad to see that we have 5 of the countries in national action plans, because I think one of the important things is what you see is what you get, and have the opportunity to see and learn from each other. That will be the key issue for the future of the IGIF. So the plan of work, we will see endorsement work for, and at the last meeting that we had July, see if we can, sorry for that, the last meeting with the previous meeting, the high-level group IGIF, we had a workshop for the work plan, what to raise awareness of what we would like to do. And as we said, we have these 3 goals, and we fill this with activities. The goal 1 is for the communication, and we have goal 3, picture practice, and then we have the funding perspective in goal number 4. And then we see some cutting initiatives that we need to take care of as well, to raise the awareness of what we are doing and to implement the IGIF. So what I'd like to open up the floor for question and valuable input of the work that we have done so far. So please, I open up the floor for the audience to or give us guidance or valuable input. Or give the panelists and the moderators some feedback.
Anders?
Simon, please.
Anders, yes, so I've been monitoring the chat, and given the wealth of information that is posted here, whether it be countries who need particular assistance where the IGF is concerned, or recommendations or work that is actually going on in various member states or various countries, I think it's wise for us to ensure that we record in terms of the chat and be able to, as a high level group, go through what all that is here and use it to assist us as we strategize and we plan way forward in terms of the 3 goals of which we've indicated, in addition to the other goals of which we eventually would want to move towards in terms of executing. So a big thank you to all the persons who have been posting in the chat, who have all been sharing about where they're at and their needs and all of that, because this is really a wealth of information that will help us in terms of moving forward. Thank you. Over to you, Anders.
Thank you. That's very important. Sorry, but I missed all the chats during this session, so I hope we can catch up with it later on and have it as a guide in the. Please, Paco Ferdinand, please. I will give the floor to Bob.
Yes, Sanding, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I'm Bako
Yes, now
Ferdinand
clear.
from Burkina Faso. Let me take this nice opportunity to thank all the distinguished guests, colleagues in the entire community of Geo information. I'm Bako Ferdinand from Burkina Faso. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Bako,
you.
please.
We can.
We
Yes,
can
we
hear you.
can.
So I take this advantage to have a thought for countries which are strongly affected by the corona. And at this level, we are lucky in Burkina Faso, you know, because the number of cases is very, very limited here. And the burning wish for us is that the situation disappear around this world, and let us see each other to discuss from a issue we meet actually. You know, we are very, very involved to the EGIF since 2018, and that is a great opportunity for us to think again, UNJJM team, and also all the high-level member for guidance. And I do believe that by filling this plan of work, it will be a great opportunity for us to continue manage the IGIF, because you know it's not very, very easy as a communication strategy and finding a issue. So with your support and guidance, I do believe that our developing country, we will get a lot of strategy to manage this IGIF. Thanks a lot, and we are together to solve this puzzle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bako Ferdinand, for your guidance and your comments. Too valuable for the and input for the future. Thank you very much. I see a lot of positive responses to the panelists, and I truly believe there's awareness and knowledge raising of what we are doing. So again, thank you very much. Someone else who would like to give some guidance or raise a question? Don't be shy. I think the silence to the end of this someone who would like to say something?
Yes, thank you very much. This is Nicolene Puri. I'm from South Africa. I work with Mimi in the SCI implementation, and I just have a quick observation. Over the past 6 months, I've often sat in meetings and budgets have come up and requirements for money. And I think in terms of your goal 3, I made an observation that there was 103 people at one stage in this meeting. That beyond just looking for funding, my suggestion would be to see how we can actually pool resources in terms of shared experiences, like was mentioned earlier, but to make like a sign-up sheet or something, or an initiative where people can start registering and say, I'm willing and I'm able and I'm capable to maybe share this components of the SDI implementation in my country, or of the IGAIF implementation. I think if we start looking at resources in terms of listings and willingness to share experiences, while we're working in parallel on securing sustainable funding, I think there's a lot of people that will be willing to share and contribute to an initiative outside of a financial framework at this stage. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Fori. And I can only agree. All things, it's not necessarily about money, that kind of funding. You can also use the experience and share the knowledge within the UNGGM family to actually get a result and work about learning from each other. And as you said, if you have the capability and the knowledge, then we can do a lot of work and progress.
Okay.
Please. Would you like to say something, Derek?
If I could, Anders, in following on that last recommendation, comment and recommendation, which is such a very good recommendation. As she stated, we had 103, we now have 91 persons who are currently online. If it is a case whereby persons have a genuine interest and would like to reach out and share in terms of their experiences or whatnot, I think it's a very good recommendation in terms of facilitating that in some way, shape, or form. A simple one that readily comes to mind is possibly the posting of emails in the chat, indicating that definitely I'm interested in participating in such an engagement with respect to the whole virtual knowledge exchange, because I have whatever to share with respect to a particular area or not, or other. Different from, I'm guessing, doing a general reaching out to the UNGGM community and finding out if there are interested persons who would want to share their experience and participate, whether it be on a global level or regional level, with respect to assisting with sensitization, different from knowledge sharing, and then through that now empowering member states with respect to executing, given different resources, because as she rightly stated, funding is important, but apart from funding, there is so much more in terms of resources that are definitely needed with respect to advancing our efforts where the IGIF is concerned. So thank you for that, Anders. Handing back over to you.
Thank you very much, Simon.
Thank you very much, Simon,
for your advice.
I
can only agree. So all people who would like to contribute and also the work with the high-level group of IGF. We sure appreciate your in the future work. So you're all welcome to be a part of the future work.
Thank you,
And as I see,
Simon, for
yes,
in
the chat. Please,
can I make a few comments, Andres? Thank you, Simon, for the nice comment. I think, as you said, the high-level group IGF is interested to work with all relevant entities, including the UNGGM bodies and also the academic network and the thematic groups. We would like to work with all key regional stakeholders in order to implement the strategic goals. The implementation of all these strategic goals needs both financial and non-financial resources, including engagement of key experts. So we highly appreciate interest colleagues in this panel to actively participate in this effort, and would like to engage with you. I really thank you very much for your interest.
Shall we proceed to the agenda item 5 for today? And that's just a small reminder about the 11th session of the UNGGIM. The Integrated Geospatial Framework session, our session, will be held on August 23. And I truly recommend you all who will attend the meeting or have the opportunity for this session, please do so and give us guidance and recommendations in the future work. Also on the 3 prioritized goals that we're going to establish subgroups and initiatives to fulfill, and give us guidance and support. But of course, as Deirdre and Mena said, we know a guide before the end of this year. And here we also need resources and people who can be a part of the work that we do. But of course, we would like to, for those who have reached out and would like to this work to be part of the ongoing work and the implementation of the IGF on a global, regional and local level, because it's not only the implementation guide who is the result, it's actually the action result on the local level. So we have a lot of work to do, and this work is very important. Please on the interventions for the 11th session of UNGGIM. That's just a small from me and Dr. Tulu. And we have come to the end of this session. Would you like to start, Dr. Tulu?
Yes, thank you, Andres. I think we will make, thank you very much, all the panelists and also all the participants to this side event. We'd like to wrap up the session. I would like to, actually the 3 strategic goals that has been discussed during the panel discussion as interlinked, and also they are quite related to each other. And also the 3 goals will drive the remaining 3 strategic goals, which has been highlighted in the presentation. And I would like to start from a remark by Deirdre. The implementation of the IGF framework really needs, it's a kind of evolving process where it has to be maintained and updated to meet the current and future national and international needs. Presently, the implementation of the implementation guide of the IGF, which is a part 2 document, is not finalized, and an urgent intervention is needed to finalize this implementation guide in order to help us implement our strategic plan. So in this regard, we actually would like to ask your active engagement in terms of mobilizing your human resources and also financial resources towards the finalization of this implementation guide. And this implementation guide is actually considered as under the strategic goal 6, which is oversee improvement in the review of the implementation framework. So this framework should be continuously updated and maintained, as the IGF itself is an evolving process. So we need to really mobilize all the necessary resources and finalize the implementation guide so that we can learn more during the practical implementation of the IGF at the country level. But to do so, also we need to focus on the key recommendations forwarded by Jamie during the panel discussion. Improving communication is one key success toward this making a sustained implementation and new uptake of the IGF implementation. So creating awareness and understanding about the value, importance and value of geospatial information, specifically about the importance of IGF toward this establishing a national geospatial capacity and capability is a very critical concern to be addressed by the high-level group, and we need to demonstrate and strengthen our communication so that the high-level group can actually support the member states by providing a communication mechanism that they can use to promote the importance of IGF at high executive level, and so that they can get political support as well as support in terms of finance, because finance is very critical, and there are very limited competing funders, and prioritizing our strategic goals is also very important while we implement the IGF at a country level. And I think we will definitely work toward this effective communication of this framework by integrating the importance of IGF with other frameworks that has been adopted by the United Nations. We have to demonstrate and also we have to work toward this integrating this framework with other effective frameworks such as effective land management, global statistical and geospatial integration framework, and other frameworks related to climate change issues and other pertinent issues at a global scale, so that the framework and its adoption at the country level will get substantive political support. And the other very important issue raised by Mimi is the implementation of the IGF is a way forward for most developing nations where there is a limited geospatial capability or almost no capability at all. So I think most developing countries are advised and recommended to implement the IGF framework. And IGF framework itself is an overarching framework, and through the implementation guide, it can be easily implemented from top to bottom approach, so that through this, the work of the high-level group, I think we can create adequate communication. We can adequately communicate the importance of the framework in terms of meeting the national priority agenda and also SDG goals, so that the appropriate capacity building scheme can be developed and created at the country level, by leveraging cooperation with inter-regional and also intra-regional coordination. I think we can use existing UNGGIM entities toward this leveraging such kind of cooperation. Also, the panelists suggested us to consider creating knowledge management frameworks through actually looking at cooperation framework where regions can communicate with each other in terms of sharing good practice and experience. And for all this to be successfully achieved, I think the issue of sustainable funding is also very important and very critical. Funding is very essential. So once we are able to communicate the importance and value of the IGF framework, I think we can get, each country can actually leverage a political space to get substantive funding scheme to what is implementing the IGF. So funding is one of very critical strategy toward the attainment of the IGF framework. And we considered the prioritization of the IGF framework itself, because with a limited funding, we need to prioritize our strategies, and we have to focus on those strategic pathways depending on the national and regional circumstances and interest. So each region may have their own distinct interest to address some key strategic pathway. And I think in a very staged approach, the IGF implementation can be implemented at a full scale within a reasonably short time period. But the work of the high-level group is critical toward this one. And these are some of the critical points that I noted from the panel discussion. And we consider all the other challenges that has been raised as some other plan that will be tackled during the implementation of the action plan. Thank you very much, Andres. I will be back to you.
Thank you very much for wrapping up this summary of Dr. Tulu. There is only one thing to do. I would like, on behalf of me and my co-chair, Dr. Tulu, and the members of the high-level group, thank you all to be part of this side event to the 11th session of the UNGGIM. I would also thank Stefan and Rosamund to have this welcome speech for this meeting today, and a special thanks to Tim, Simon, Maruale, Deirdre, and Jamie for their panel discussion and giving this prioritized goals get alive and a content that was very interesting. You raised awareness about them, but also raised the knowledge about what we are doing in the high-level group and the future work. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you to all of you. Looking forward to the future work. So thank you very much for today, and have a nice day, evening, or morning, wherever you are around the world.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anders and Dr.
Thank you, Anders and Dr. Tulu.
Take care around the world.
Take care around the world.
Thank you, Stephen.